After Mark Brown's latest video over the Breath of the Wild dungeons airing just as I was getting back into the game for speedrunning reasons, thanks AGQ, I realized that there's a big overlook many people do when talking about Breath of the Wild's main quest dungeons, the journey to them. Except only one of them is actually done Zelda-like. Don't get me wrong, I hate the Zelda formula. I hate hand-holding in games, I hate formulaic puzzle dungeons, I hate unskippable cutscenes, hate. But I do want to take you along a very well-crafted journey Breath of the Wild packs in for the player, involving everything the game revolutionized for the series in such a seamless way that you'd be surprised if I told you they actually tried with the other dungeons as well. I'm talking about Divine Beast Vah Rudania looming over Goron City of Death Mountain. The differences start at the very first shot of the game. This is where your personality starts showing and you have to complete the sentence, "Whoa, I wanna check out that." Answer now on your phones. While many go for the bird, as the braver souls go for the castle, there is a point to be made here. Nintendo found no good way to make the Zora quest eye-catching, even the desert a natural draw for just being a desert, and as stated in the very worthwhile Breath of the Wild critique by Joseph Anderson, players might just want to see what happens when you reach the end of this supposedly huge map, and the Gerudo Desert is the nearest point to the plateau from the edges. But what's supposed to attract your attention over to this area, this miserable rain cloud? Which, combined with the biggest visual flaw of the game, the hideous fog and gray effects, which, ooh, do I have stuff to say about that, it just ends up being the rest of the sky. And besides, rain is one of the most hated things in this game, if not the most. So what the developers decided to do is try to interest you in the main quest, was make it so passing by the Zora River, or any river really, would start an unskippable cutscene where a messenger informs you that the prince had been looking for a Hylian in this land filled with Hylians. You can probably see where I'm going with this. Death Mountain is awesome. It's a volcano. It's called Death Mountain. You go there. And if the volcano itself wasn't enough on interest, check this baby out. Well, yes, you can also see Vah Meadow itself in the overworld. Vah Rudania is fully animated and mobile at all times. It's not too obvious, but the first moment you do notice it, you can't ignore the mechanical menace looming over the peak at all times, and I don't think you can do giant robots poorly in a video game. At least from the many good examples I can think of at the spot. Don't waste your comment making an example. So, while in the Vah Ruda quest, following up the river will lead to a long, stretching, rainy path to Zora's domain, Goron City is much more of a roller coaster. Before finding the Death Mountain entrance itself, since wherever you look at it from, 90% of people won't deliberately get to the start of Death Mountain from the back, you'll get to this road and stable where you start seeing a new or perhaps very familiar faces, the Gorons. These giant rock merchants sell you pricey gemstones that you'll probably not buy, but this kinda subtly injects your brain with the fact that, hey, these rock guys have gems in their heels. Interesting. So going into the stable, you'll probably meet this lady who'll diss your style and tell you you're getting nowhere with that outfit heading to, you guessed it, Goron City. With or without buying elixirs, by now you're intrigued about what hides in the mountain that makes it such a sought-after travel spot, besides the obvious. So you start making your way up this hill and here greets you, Death Mountain marker number 1. This might just be me, it probably is, but I immediately wanted to see if I can get to all travel points this can bring me to. And I don't think I ever made that list, completed it over my many hours over many profiles. Right by the marker is another Goron guy, just to reassure you that, yeah, this is where the gem guys come from. And right after those, a magical healing hot spring like you have yet to encounter lies, and you can't help but wonder what else this mountain has. Meanwhile, starting out Zora's domain quest, you meet rain, like the rest of the overworld has, and you can't climb stuff like the game invented and made possible, and you know, the game had, and it's fun. So why did you add fun to the game and then make it not fun in order to make the game less fun? Right after the spring, you're met with a pretty broad path. You can either go to the obvious paved path, or you meet a guardian and a fire keys cave, possibly introducing you to elemental bats in case you haven't seen them yet. Because, yeah, this doesn't only occur in this part, but the other options are climbing right over that whole gem, or this road to the left that I found just getting this footage, where you go for a road of boulders and fire choo-choos, but all three of those options will lead you to the same point where the devs knew they had a shock factor on their hands. The air is burning. You will immediately start heating up, and soon after that you will be losing health per heartbeat. This is only a short distance away from what you've probably been after this whole time anyway, the Elden Tower. Climbing this tower leads to finally getting a safe war point inside the mountain, and from here is another point where you're free to explore the area. There's a shrine, there's some stuff, there's a lava pool, but generally all those paths of interest still lead you to this canyon area, where before the climb to the next major point of interest, you're faced with the first real enemy with defining Death Mountain traits, the Igniotalus. Meet him or not, this is where things get really interesting, and you start realizing that this area will require a lot more preparation than you might think. Oh, and by the way, at this point in the Zora quest, you're faced with a matchup against 7 to 9 Lizalfos with shock arrows, but if you already knew how shock arrows work, you're left with a feeling that the constant rain is just against you and you're against an unfair challenge, since only later you realize the constant rain is because of the Divine Beast. This is much less engaging than introducing you to heat mechanics that are actually area exclusive in a more direct and understood way, and the nature of Breath of the Wild still gives you that freedom of approaching this new problem. After the Talus, you're finally given some company. The Southern Mine is hard at work during the day, and this friendly fella is also a bonus for players who carefully manage to learn how to capture these fireproof lizards, and are a great money save for the future too. This is also your confirmation that if you didn't find enough ores yet, that yeah, this place shines with treasure at every corner if you know how to look for corners. Also, you get some hints and warnings of what to come, and a cool combat section that involves the fire-breathing Lizalfos you've seen earlier in the area, to a more combat-heavy camp along with moblins and such. But then, right before the city, you get another glance at the mechanized madness that is the divine beast Vah Rudania, and you know, a shower of fireballs to really get your blood pumping. Inside Goron City is an RPG city. Nothing really exciting if you're like me and hate dialogue, but a quick chat with this elder guy shows you where to go, and after a quick shrine you're met with a new exclusive enemy variant, a stone Octorok. You can't reflect it, you can't hit it, you can't snipe it. So what do? You eventually bomb him and notice him sucking in the bomb with the matching visuals. Remember this, but don't overthink it yet, so I'll have a point later. Okay. After these two fellas, you arrive at my favorite level design, I'll call it, of the entire game, the Abandoned North Mine. You're directed to this little big red orb mishmash, locking you noble with the Goron you're told to find in the first place, and in the way you're alerted of these cannons being dangerous and risky, so you try them out. Hitting the handle only spins the machine around, and the metallic look might lead to someone trying like this, but soon enough your brain will learn that, like the last enemy used the bomb, and you need to use another round bomb. This part is just so much fun, bombing a Lizalfos camp, leading to the other cannon and bombing the next camp, and then having to properly fight these two archers, or if you look closely, bomb it too with the extra cannon to the right of the camp. This extra cannon also bombs the next section for you, and as another bonus, has this rubble of red rocks that if you try bombing as the cannon is rotating, you're rewarded with gemstones, also teaching the players about red rocks being destructible by cannons and shooting while rotating. Then you're met with the best of the best level, a cannon before a skull, and blowing it up rewards you with ice arrows that a player can probably link really quickly in their head that fire enemies are weak against, and this model, that's thank you. This is the only time in the game that the Shattered Skull base mode is used, and it's only to give you 5 arrows. Some more mess around leads to you trying to get to Inobo and hopefully quickly bombing the wall and seemingly just starting the quest. This part in Zora's domain is a joke. Instead of actually interacting with the modern champion, you need 20 shock arrows, that's it. You can just buy shock arrows or find them along the way or through the desert, which, yeah, can be considered a benefit for some late players, but the other option is, yeah, final. Whoa. This just proved that for some reason developers thought Vah Rudania was meant as the first divine beast the player goes to, but then they balance all the 3 other ones. But this just falls flat compared to original level design and mechanics. And now it's back to exploration. You're faced with basically a free area. Maybe explore this minecart trail you saw entering this mine, and maybe continue circling the mountain reaching the top, or climb around it and explore. Overall, this is more worth to explore like the rest of Breath of the Wild, but then, when you choose to continue this quest, which can be much later, so you come to Ingogo Bridge or whatever, and you have to help Yunobo, which is using the Rook's protection again to fend off 2 moblins. Beating them will lead to the final part of the pre-dungeon quest, the sneaking section. You're introduced to Yunobo being used as a cannon to hit things, and then there's the stealth section. You have to guide yourself and Yunobo through these Zelda 1 lever-style copters that serve as sentries, making Rudania start a meteor fall when they spy you, causing a lot of damage, and you either go through a lot of resources to stay alive or, well, die. This is another cool exclusive design element with the usual Nintendo level design we all know and love. You start with a simple cliff hiding you 2 from the sentries, and then the same thing with a faster sentry. And then you're forced to try and find a way around the lasers, either bombing each sentry twice or mashing it with the magnetized blocks. After that, you get another magnetized plate to either kill the sentry with or just run under it. And then, some spinning sentries to boggle you for one last time. Along the way, you have these cannons along with some enemies to throw in a bit of combat, and you directly get to attack the Divine Beast itself and finally deactivating it, scaring it into the pit of Death Mountain, which I guess isn't lava, but instead a solid block. Yet it still flows out. Okay, I guess. And now compare all of this to the level design of the 2-minute long Shock Arrow segment with Vah Rudania, and you really start wondering, why weren't all dungeons like Rudania, at least their quests? I don't want to go over the dungeon itself, exactly for that reason. All dungeons are like 60% equal in core gameplay, sadly, as Mark Brown covered in his video that motivated me to finally make this video that was kinda in my head for like 2 weeks now. But one final point I want to address. This is the only boss that isn't using obvious pre-established mechanics in its second phase, but instead uses the subtly introduced sucking mechanic of Stone Octoroks, using the round bomb used so extensively along the journey. While the other bosses either use the beast takedown mechanics, something kind of brand new yet understandable from context, or just stupid. Overall, Rudania is just something special. It's a phenomenally crafted journey while still following the independent and varied nature of Breath of the Wild, and now just thinking about this, like the other Divine Beast quests themselves, and just wondering, why didn't this much effort and thought go into all of them? We might never know. Thanks for watching. I was Books. Love ya.